Welcome to Beyond Neutral. I'm your host, Paula Reed. I think of the journey of life as a road that we're driving down. We get to speed up on the straightaways, ease back on the curves, and I don't know about you, but I've certainly had the obstacle in the roadway that I never expected to see, and I had to either slam my brakes on or swerve to avoid hitting it. But whether we're talking about our careers or relationships or even just managing through life's phases, life is all about shifting and moving from one place to another. The challenge is that sometimes, in trying to get from where we were to where we want to be, we can get stuck while we're trying to shift. And we land in what I call the neutral space, where we're applying old ways of thinking to new situations. Join me and some incredibly inspiring guests as we talk about what it takes to shift into gear and get to where you want to be. Because here's the deal, if you're sitting in neutral, you're going nowhere. Welcome to today's episode of Beyond Neutral. I'm very excited that today we are talking again with Elizabeth Cowper. This is the second part of a two-part interview that I had with Elizabeth. If you caught the first episode, you know that Elizabeth is an absolutely amazing and inspiring woman who has over 20 years of HR leadership, working for such brands as Planet Organic, Harvey Nichols, LVMH, and most recently Tapestry, the umbrella company for Coach, Kate Spade, and Stuart Weitzman. While in that role, Elizabeth was the vice president of HR for Europe, the global head of well-being, and part of the global DEI committee. In 2020, Elizabeth left the corporate experiences that she was having and launched out as an entrepreneur, where she launched a company called Ludo. And she's going to talk about that journey with us today. Ludo is an amazing platform that is completely focused on inclusion in the workplace. Elizabeth has been listed as one of the 10 most futuristic businesswomen pioneering innovation and a top 5 unstoppable women leaders to watch in 2023. And having spent a considerable amount of time talking with Elizabeth, I have no doubt that she's unstoppable. So thank you for joining. And here's my interview with Elizabeth. I would love to know a little bit about what gave you the courage to go from having this corporate job, which was huge, big organization, big teams, big numbers, to all of a sudden it's you and how many people when you first started?
Just me.
Just you.
I have a team of 5 now.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about that journey. Tell me that story.
Wow. And my job at Tapestry was incredible. I loved Tapestry. It was amazing. And it probably was I was at Harvey Nichols before that, but then starting at Tapestry, where I began on the well-being piece of my career in Harvey Nichols, but really pushed that agenda in Europe and then expanded it more globally at Tapestry. And then really got involved in the DEI journey there. I was VP of HR across 13 countries in Europe. And so all of my experience of all of my years in my career really came together into, you could say, the dream job, I guess. And I loved it, and I traveled a lot, and it was brilliant. And I was working for a big public company, and there were things that I really wanted to do, but my hands were tied sometimes. And I felt like we could be doing more in the well-being and inclusion space in some ways. And this is in no way detrimental to them as a business. It's just, as you describe, it's a beast. That is a beast of a business.
It takes time. Things don't move as fast as you might want them to move.
Yeah.
Sure.
And it's, they employ 20,000 people. Yep. They're a public company. It's huge. And I mean, wow, incredible experience. And I wanted to go faster, and I wanted to make a change and make a difference. And I think all of that was the kind of moment of, okay, this is it. If I'm going to do this and really feel like I can be on my purpose every day, I'm going to have to just step out and build what I want to build, but do it independently for lots of businesses. So yeah, that was it. But it was wild timing. So I decided this was the plan. I resigned in November. My notice period finished in March 2020.
Oh,
which
wow. What else was happening then? Let me think. Okay.
and so when I resigned, COVID wasn't a word, you know. And then I thought, oh my word, what have I done? You know, I'm stepping out into the big bad world in my first ever startup, and there's a global pandemic.
Wow. Well,
Oh
well-being became the forefront of everybody's conversation, however, right?
I know it did. I stayed on actually because I was setting up my own thing. I was due to leave on Friday, the 13th of March, which
was where everything like peaked. That was the day, right?
It was my final, supposed final day of being employed, and the world imploded on that day. And so they asked me to stay on a bit longer because I wasn't going to another job. I was doing my own thing. So I stayed on for another 6 or 8 weeks, I think it was. And I crisis managed the shutting down of all those 13 countries in Europe. So then became obviously from home, one of my daughters stuck a piece of paper on the wall that said the panic room, which made me laugh. So it was daily, you know, calls of, and it was just the wildest 2 months. And then I finished and set up my own thing.
Wow. So you went out with a bang.
Yeah. But you know what? I'm incredibly grateful for those 2 months because it was huge and possibly the most intense 2 months of my whole career. And yeah, I learned so much. So that's
interesting.
Good.
That was one of my questions is when you think about your career, where were the big learning moments?
Well, that's definitely one of them.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
Yeah. One of the things and it was probably only, you know, a couple of weeks into it that I realized what I was expected to do. And so we had a crisis meeting every morning at 10 a.m. where we had all the key people on that call every day. So that was the, you know, head of retail ops for the different brands and so we had like the key people on that call. And every day there'd be a call saying, the shopping center in Milan have closed down these stores, this, and this. The manager has her brother staying and he has got someone in his team that's diagnosed with COVID. Should we shut the store or should we leave it for 2 more days? And can they go to work because the manager's brother's got COVID or whatever? And I can't remember. But the point was, it was like this. And I'd be saying, yeah, shut the store. Yeah, we're going to close that one down. Yeah, no, we can't go to work. That person's been exposed to us. Obviously, there was no testing then. Yeah, but it was expected that person probably had been exposed to COVID. And I realized more than ever in my whole career, they just needed a decision maker to make a call. And I was making choices completely in the dark on a daily basis. And because you don't have all the information.
You don't have data and you have to make a decision.
Yeah.
Right.
And that is unprecedented in my career they just needed somebody, you know, and I was the VP running this to go, no, yes, yep, shut the store. Yep. They just needed somebody to make the call. And that was me. And it's amazing because you just have to go in many ways on your instinct and gut, and also just be bold that they just need reassurance of a decision. And even if it wasn't always the right one, somebody needed to own it. And it was terrifying some days, but you just got to step into it and go with it, you know, but it was just full on.
So I'm laughing because I'm hearing I heard you say the words, be bold.
Yeah, you have to be bold. Making decisions in the dark takes courage.
So tell me how that relates to being bold, relates to launching your business and making decisions in the dark.
Yeah, I mean, I still do lots of that. And that probably gave me courage of doing it when I did that at Tapestry. But yeah, being bold. It's interesting because there is a certain level of comfort and certainty about working for a company where you work hard every month and then you get paid every month. You know, that's the schedule. And so there is a huge amount of uncertainty and being bold and having courage when you step out of that and say, I'm going to not get paid every month and I'm going to build something that is bigger than that because I feel passionate enough that this really makes a difference. And that's a really interesting dynamic because we still have to pay the mortgage, feed the kids, pay the bill. Like that's all, that doesn't go away.
No, that stays.
That stays.
That comes to the new job.
Yeah, that's, you know, and that, so there is this innate drive and passion and inner courage that just has you really believe that what you're doing is the right thing and that you play the long game. Because I wasn't going to suddenly get paid every month that, you know, and those, in fact, I'm still not paid every month. So I think that is the part where you have to step into your fear and just believe in your gut and your soul and your heart that what you're doing is really going to make a difference and that it matters.
That's fabulous. When you think about that, stepping into that, your courage and your gut and your soul and your heart, what are some of the experiences that you've had either growing up or in your career or, you know, that you've learned along the way that really gave you the fortitude to be able to do that?
That's a great question. I mean, I've always, if you ask my mother, she'll say, I'm the eldest of 3 daughters. And she'd always probably say Elizabeth was the tricky one. I've always been very outspoken, direct, opinionated, bold. I'm a risk taker. I'm definitely a risk taker. That's been in me since I was a kid. But actually, if you go back to my upbringing, my mum was a radiographer. And but she also took quite a lot of time out when she raised us 3. And in between that, did all these little entrepreneurial ideas and projects of different things with her friends. And my dad was a chartered surveyor, but he left his company and set up his own business with 3 other people. There was 3 of them in total when he was about, so now let's say his mid-40s. I can't remember.
Wow.
But he had 3 kids and, you know, raising 3 kids, and he set up his own company. So maybe now you ask the question, it's in me somewhere.
You had examples of it. Yeah.
I had examples of it.
It sounds like there was permission to take risks. Yeah.
I think so.
I tell people, I think that the family that we grew up in is the first organization we operate within, right?
That's so true.
Yeah. And it's so often that people say, well, no. And then when you really start tracking back, they go, oh yeah, well, my mother did this. My father did this. I always kind of had it in me. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I guess so. And then even in my corporate jobs, I certainly was pushing boundaries and, you know, taking risks and saying, let's just give it a go. And that's not always the culture in a big corporate. You know, if I think back to, well, LVMH is a very safe business, an incredible business. I mean, wow, the rigor and the learnings I got there. But, you know, to take risks in that business is, you know, you've got to kind of get people on side, which we did, but I wanted to push the envelope, you know.
So it's curious because taking risks, it's calculated risks, right? So if you think back on your career, what examples do you have of a time where you took a risk and you're like, whoa, either I should have thought that through differently and I learned from it, or I took a risk and man, that paid off way more than I ever thought it would?
Probably when I went to work for Planet Organic, that was a biggie. That was a company that had been privately set up by a woman called Renee Elliott. Amazing. Planet Organic is like for anyone not in the UK, like a sort of mini Whole Foods, let's call it that. So amazing organic food, beautiful supermarkets. They're just divine. And they were really doing brilliant stuff. And the original founder had bought an external investment. They wanted to open new stores. And they brought in a new chief exec and they wanted to really get this business on the map and grow it. And I'm not going to say it was in crisis, but the business was in a pivotal position. Let's call it that, where it either could have fallen flat or remained in this small, you know, couple of stores, or it could have grown and gone into something else. And I was approached about the job there. To go and be their, you know, head of HR. And it was a full reorg of the business. So proper redesign of the structure, like really go in full redesign of the business from a people perspective of everything and anything. It was all needed doing to grow the business. And I remember really thinking about that, thinking this could be a complete disastrous move for my career. And it's one of the best things I ever did.
Wow. What made it great?
The chief exec, Peter Marsh, is the most incredible man. And we all have people in our career where you can think back and think, who was a huge influence to you in your career?
Absolutely.
And Peter Marsh is 100% one of them. Like, I will shout his name from the rooftops. He's an amazing man. And we worked really closely together. You know, we spoke every day. We were in the office together every day. And I very much, with him and the CFO, us three, I felt fully part of that strategic journey of how do we grow this business. All the decisions that we made, you know, he trusted me to make them and go with it. He empowered me to take risks and do some wild stuff. And he's got an incredible brain and was just a real resource to me. And what I learned in that role and how I grew as a person, professionally and personally, was just huge. Absolutely huge.
That's excellent. Excellent. Well, let me ask you this as we're wrapping up. If you could think back and give yourself any advice, your younger self any advice, what would your advice be? And how old would you be when you learned that?
I'd probably say, if I go into my teens, early teens, just to give you context on this, I'm not that academic in terms of, you know, I just didn't find exams easy. I'm not an exam brain kid.
Okay.
You know, I got through school and I'm good on the coursework and the work in the classroom, but you put me in an exam, I used to really panic. So I think I would say to my younger self, exams aren't everything. Just breathe. It's okay.
Just get over it.
Just get over it. Because right. I became really nervous about exams, and the education system in the UK relies so much on you doing well in an exam. So school was quite hard for me. So I think I'd say, don't worry about that. And then in my 20s, probably I'd say be in flow. You just let stuff happen. I felt like I really wanted to control things a lot more in my 20s. And if I had a plan and it didn't go the way I wanted, I know I beat myself up inside probably too much. And I learned as I got older that
let it go. Everything is a lesson, right? Everything's a lesson.
Yeah.
And it's just, what can I learn from it? And that, boy, that is and going with that, you're absolutely right. That's an age thing that you start to realize that you're like, well, what do I learn from this? I've recovered before. I've done, I always like to say, it's not the first or last time that's going to happen. Right.
It's true. And it is an age thing. And then also we all have crises and painful moments in our life. And I think the older you get, you kind of get, well, like for me, I sometimes think, well, nothing can be as bad as that. You know, it's kind of, I've been through worse.
I've done that.
Not that bad.
It is true. It is true. I've done that. I survived. I obviously will survive again. Right. Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Last question. And this, I always like to try to guess the answer to this. So if you're going someplace you've never been, all right, you're using a GPS and you plug in where you're going. Do you do an overview to say, okay, what's the context of this route and how it's telling me to go? Or do you just blindly get behind the wheel and let it show you along the way?
I just blindly get behind the wheel. I'm like, just because normally I'm then on the phone making a call in the car through the hands-free, I might add, before anyone says I'm doing this. Right. And so when I drive, I just drive on autopilot and I use the time to catch up on calls. You
delegate.
Yeah.
You delegate really well. You're not a micromanager about your driving.
God, no, not at all. And it's a really good time because I'm so busy a lot of the time with work. Talk in the car, I quite often ring my mates. That's catch up with my mates time.
Oh yeah. I'm guilty of the same thing. Catch up time in the car. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. So I'm not paying attention to the route. I'm like, just get me there. I'll chat to my mates.
Although I do have to say, there have been several occasions where I'm catching up on the phone and I know the route and I just blow right past the exit because I'm so engaged in my conversation. So that does happen.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. Well, Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us today. What an awesome conversation. I summarize this with be bold. Be bold. Definitely. Those are the words I'm taking about. Be bold, take chances and make it happen, right?
Definitely be a risk taker.
Be a risk taker. Well, good luck in your continued evolution of your company and your platform, and very excited to see the impact that you have, and to watch this just take over the world. I'm excited for you. Absolutely excited for you. Elizabeth Cowper, thank you so much for your time. Keep driving. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us this week on Beyond Neutral. I'm your host, Paula Reed. Make sure to visit our website, www.readandco.com, for this week's show notes. And if you found value in today's episode, I would appreciate you giving us a rating on Apple Podcasts or share it with a friend. Also, don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. All of this helps to support the show. Have a great week.